Hi, welcome to this edition of the Astreva Masterclass, where we help HR and talent professionals take their careers to the next level. I'm Joy Price, and I'm your host for this session. And make sure that you go and check our growing catalog of masterclasses. We've touched on a lot of topics, but this is one that's top of mind for many professionals all across the globe. That topic is the impact of remote work on recruitment strategies. We've got two talented professionals in this space who are going to share their background, experience, and tips. So, without further ado, I'd love to introduce Kim and Kritika, who will be our experts for this session. Kim, please feel free to introduce yourself, your role, your company that you work with, and a fun fact about yourself that we wouldn't know on your LinkedIn profile, and Kritika, you as well.
Thanks, Joey. I appreciate it. Thanks for the warm welcome. I'm Kim. I currently work at Zapier. I've been at Zapier now for about a year and a half, and I lead our talent attraction organization. I have an incredible team that brings in a lot of our talent and responsible for our employer brand. Fun fact, I do have a little note of this on my LinkedIn profile, but I can share a little more. I've been a meetup organizer in different cities around the US for the past decade. I started hosting meetups in Indianapolis, Indiana when I first moved there. I thought it would be a great way to get to know other people and hosted over several hundred events, all related to art, a little bit of music, but mostly creating art. So also had the chance to sharpen my artistic skills and meet so many really unique artists in that city.
Awesome, awesome. Kritika,
Amazing. I'm Kritika. I'm Kritika Menon, and I've been part of CGI for almost 2 years. I think I'll complete 2 years in January. Prior to that, I have overall 15 plus years of experience within human resources and talent acquisition, with special focus, strong focus towards D&I. Fun fact about me, again, I think a part of it, I sort of just updated it this morning where I did mention I'm also a digital creator. So I think for the past 4 years, I do have an account on food blogging. So that's something that not too many people know. And just earlier this year, I think around June, when I started my YouTube channel job strategies and job search strategies, with regards to motivation, personal growth, professional growth per se. And one more small fun fact about me: I'm pretty good at remembering names versus face. So it does take me a couple of meetups to like register a face, but a name is something that sort of sits in within my brain. Yeah, that's what.
awesome, awesome. Well, great. It's a pleasure meeting you both. And we've got a lot of questions to unpack today. So let's jump into it. The first question that I want to ask you both, and Kritika, I'll start with you. Um, in what ways has the rise of remote work reshaped the priorities and values that candidates seek in a potential employer? And how can recruitment strategies adapt to meet those shifting expectations? Kritika, would you like to go first?
Sure. I think based on the candidate's priorities when it comes to remote work, I think a lot of expectation is increasingly. I'm seeing an increase in with respect to work-life balance. I think beyond the salaries, everything. I think a lot of ask is coming around the work-life balance, discussions around mental well-being, mental health. I think there is a lot of conversation around what companies offer on these aspects. So these are a few things that I am seeing from the candidates' priorities.
Okay. And Kim, what about you? What are you seeing?
I would agree with that. I see a lot of different changes as someone who's gone from working in an office to now being remote for the past 5 years. seeing a lot of different changes, and I think a lot of things that candidates now are really looking for. Also, now working for a company, Zapier, that has been fully remote from the beginning, and I think has done a really great job at building a lot of the policies that candidates are looking for today, even post the pandemic. I definitely agree. I think remote friendly policies are absolutely critical. I think also, as Kritika said, work life balance is also very crucial. Clear communication and transparency, I think, are also paramount, especially working in a remote environment. I think it's, of course, important anywhere in any organization, and whatever that strategy might be. But I definitely think that clear communication and transparency are key. I think both for candidates in the recruiting process, such as letting them know what they can expect in advance, providing them with regular updates throughout the process. And I also think feedback, and this is something that even at Zapier, we know we can continue to improve on, but providing feedback to candidates throughout the process in a timely manner. We've tried automating some parts of our process, but also still having that human touch as well throughout the process. So I definitely see communication and transparency really being paramount when you're working in a remote organization, and individuals are coming from all different locations, potentially speaking different languages. Without that focus, I feel like a lot of things can get miscommunicated.
All right. You talked about communication, Kim, just on that tail end there. Another layer that I'd like to go within this question is about the employer brand and how it relates to this new remote work experience. Maybe you two could share how your employer brand is changing or adapting to reflect this new normal that we're in, and what's worked for you.
Sure, I'm happy to share a few because I lead our talent brand here at Zapier, and so there's a lot of work that I've been doing on the back end. I think one of the things that we definitely try to do is still connect with our candidates in real time. That of course might be through video interviews, which I know a lot of companies are doing now. That's pretty standard. But if we can do virtual events where candidates have the opportunity to connect with us and to learn more about us. One of my colleagues hosts LinkedIn live sessions where we bring in different teammates from around the company to speak to any prospective candidate or anyone who would be interested in the company to learn a little bit more about that person, their role. We have Q&A sessions, so it just makes it a little bit more real. And I would also say, thinking about the change from being in an office to working remotely, is finding those ways to share a little bit more about our company culture. That might be through blogs, photos, and doing a lot more videos too. Video is something I'm spending a lot of time in right now. I'm producing a lot more of that here later this year and early next year so that prospective candidates also get a sense of what's the culture really like there. When you don't have an office, that can be really hard. It's hard to feel that. And I think when candidates are connected to these things and they have a great experience, that is going to boost your employer brand.
Kritika, do you have any thoughts on that as well?
I agree. I think while we are talking about remote, I think video comes in key, whether be it being interviews, be it communication around what an organization does per se. So yeah, effectively using that platform, be it even LinkedIn live events or probably pre-recorded events, etc., or even online virtual job fairs, participating in those or creating those are absolutely key.
All right, all right. We're off to a great start thus far. And I have another topic. So we talk about remote work, which traditionally that conversation is about work from home within your specific geographic region, right? But we know that the new workforce is global. Okay, so given the potential global talent pool that remote work opens up, how can HR professionals ensure fairness and equity in recruitment, especially when considering different cost of living standards and cultural norms? So, Kritika, would you please go first with this one? And Kim, you can follow up with your thoughts. Uh, Kritika, you're on mute there.
My apologies. I would probably start from the beginning with respect to first off, even as simple as job descriptions, making them inclusive, because I think that's where the whole process pretty much does start, right? So having inclusive job descriptions, keeping diversity, inclusion, equity in mind. I think those are few key things to begin with, be it during job descriptions, be it during interview panels, selecting. Keeping those things could be a good start. And yeah, I think that also creates a larger pool when you have D&I as a prime focus. So yeah.
Okay. Kim, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. I was going to also point to the job descriptions. I think in the broader lens that I look at is really transparency and providing as much information up front to candidates in that job description, in emails that we're sending to them, in those initial conversations we're having. I think about the importance of salary transparency. That's something that I've seen shift significantly in the last few years that I think is extremely important for candidates. Being at Zapier, we share our salary ranges transparently in our job descriptions and our outreach messages and conversations with candidates. And I think it's just more genuine, and it lets that person know right up front, is this something that I'm interested or not? Am I wasting my time here? And so I definitely think transparency is absolutely key. I would also say, to eliminate bias, some of the things I've seen throughout my career would be, Kritika, I think you mentioned this, is an inclusive process, diverse interview panels, bringing in different members of the business to interview candidates to make sure that we are getting a broad range of perspectives. And also structuring those interviews, having rubrics, making sure that candidates for specific roles are interviewing in specific ways, and we're collecting feedback in a way that doesn't lead to bias. I think there's a lot of training that's been done around this too. And I think through some of those practices, we can really try to eliminate bias in the process wherever we can.
Okay. Well, so bias is one piece. Cultural bias is one piece of the um, understanding cultural norms conversation. But how do you, as HR and talent professionals, perhaps recruiting across a diverse landscape, how do you study up on cultural norms to make sure that you're applying thoughtful and respectful recruiting processes uh, in new geographic locations?
Yeah, that's a great question, Joey. I think I'm lucky that I've had the opportunity in past companies to work with global teams and just getting to know different individuals and asking them open-ended questions to get to know them. But I would also say, being at Zapier and even just in the experiences I've had working with our employee resource groups, our ERGs, to really learn a little bit more or a lot more about different cultures. I've been a part of sessions where we've learned about backgrounds of different cultures and how to communicate better, or a number of different things that I think just really helps in staying on top of those things. Also, maybe attending webinars, attending podcasts, listening to different conversations, and getting a broad perspective of how everyone thinks and how they work, so that we can reduce that bias.
I'll probably add on, and I agree with what Kim mentioned, and keeping considering there are people coming in from different time zones, keeping that in mind, keeping in mind the different, be it with regards to work visas, etc. Understanding that process a little better, understanding the cultural, religious events that could happen around during that particular time, and being mindful of that and accommodating that is also very crucial, right? I mean, it's important to understand what timing and what place they are at, and having to accommodate the whole process and not just being rigid. I think that definitely is one more point that I wanted to add.
Great, great. Thank you for your thoughtful responses there. My next question that I want to ask is, as companies increasingly adopt hybrid models of work, blending both remote and in office settings, how do you see the evolution of talent acquisition techniques, and what challenges do these new dynamics pose? Let's start with Kim.
Sure, sure. I see it evolving in a number of different ways, and I definitely still see some challenges. One is when I think about just the geographic reach. I think it can be really hard for organizations to accommodate different time zones. We were just talking about different cultural differences. Once you start opening up that pool where you have some who are remote, some who are hybrid, maybe working in an office, those things can be really hard to manage. I remember I was working at a company where we went from being completely in office to fully remote during the pandemic and then hybrid afterwards. And the one key word that comes to mind when I think about it is adaptability. And I think it's both for individuals at the company, but also the company itself. I think one of the things that comes to mind as well is making sure that you have the right technology and the right communication protocols. I remember being in a meeting and some of us were on Zoom and others were in an office in the room. And those of us on Zoom kind of felt that we weren't connected. We couldn't see body language, facial expressions. We had a hard time hearing what those in the room were saying. And we all ended up getting on Zoom together so that we could feel more connected. And so I think that's just one small challenge. I think there's a lot of challenges, and I could certainly speak to more. But I think just being aware of how others are interacting and feeling connected in those different types of environments together.
Kritika, what do you think?
Absolutely. I think technology is very crucial, and again, they could be employees or members being part of different locations, could be even in the office doing a hybrid role. So being able to connect them together, being able to conduct even at times a parallel virtual plus in person meeting where everybody could be able to participate, and being able to navigate technology through that is crucial, right? And that's one of the few things, yeah, that's absolutely. And also being hybrid friendly is also being it's also very important where when you're interacting with candidates to be able to identify and being able to navigate that.
I think another aspect of this equation here, when we think about talent acquisition techniques, is the hiring managers. And are you all having to maybe train or coach hiring managers on how to be helpful in a talent acquisition process for hybrid jobs, or is it more of the same? Is there no difference between the hiring manager's role in a on-site role, a fully remote role, and a hybrid role? Are you seeing any sort of specific trainings that you're needing to do to prepare hiring managers for success? Kritika, do you have any thoughts on that?
So I think it's a journey that everybody has gone through together, right? I think I would say the COVID was the changing time for a lot of people moving in from in person, like 100% in person to a absolutely 100% remote to being going to the hybrid mode. So I think it's a journey that I think everybody has gone through together and learning together, I would say. So yes, I mean there would be certain amount of trainings and discussions that would happen, but I think it's everybody learns from each other, and working through that process. There could be challenges. There would be challenges when members are working remote or even hybrid with respect to. I mean, there are challenges both ways, whether be it remote or be it hybrid. But I think it's a journey that everybody works on together to help and achieve the mutual goal that everybody has together. So
I would agree with that. I think training is absolutely crucial, both for our recruiting team and also for hiring managers, because as these things evolve, there's going to be a lot of things that pop up that we might just not be familiar with. And I think for me, what's really important beyond that training is also collecting feedback, soliciting feedback from our recruiters, from our hiring managers, and from candidates too. I do this a lot in my day to day and have done this a lot throughout my career. I know a lot of recruiting professionals do, but really leaning into that feedback and hearing honestly what's going well and what's not, and putting those things that are opportunities and gaps into action so that we can overcome those and make some improvements. In my current role, I use our candidate experience surveys that we send to all candidates throughout our process. as well as Glassdoor. We look at all of our interview reviews from candidates on Glassdoor and we break them down. We read the free form comments. We look for trends. We look to see as a company what are we doing well and what are we not so that we can improve. And I think as companies continue to evolve from hybrid to remote and all of these different scenarios, I think listening to feedback and being willing to make changes is absolutely key.
Awesome,
Absolutely.
awesome.
Absolutely. I think candidate experience is also so crucial in the whole process, and hearing, understanding, and improving is it's a process and an ongoing process. I agree with you, Kim.
Okay. Now, if we can get a 30,000-foot view of talent acquisition in light of this new remote first sort of arrangement that many organizations have adopted over the past couple of years. Uh, would you say that you believe the quality of talent acquisition has improved with the wider adoption of remote work recruitment strategies? Or would you say it's the same or it's tougher? What are your thoughts on just TA? Is it harder to recruit in a remote work environment or not? Kim, you go first.
I say it's not entirely clear cut. I a number of things that I think are major improvements, but then I still see some challenges that I'm sure we all still see in the world of recruiting. I think remote work has opened up a global talent pool, and so we have a lot more access to talent globally. And I think that can also lead to more diverse perspectives. I've certainly seen that more in the last several years as we have been remote, hiring individuals from different locations, different backgrounds, and then making space for everyone to share their voice openly. I think that that's been a huge improvement. And I also think something else that resonates with me now that I've been fully remote and working for a company that's always been remote is having that level of flexibility that we didn't always have before. For me, being able to get up early and to go to the gym and to log on at a time that's best for me. I know that I can log off in the middle of the afternoon if I needed to take care of something. And it's really about the outcome and it's about the work that I produce and not the hours that I'm putting in or sitting in front of a computer. So I think in remote recruitment strategies, I think those things really stand out to me, and they of course attract talent when they're done well. But I think about one of the challenges that comes to mind is, and I hear this in my current company, is limited in-person interaction, and this could be for candidates and for employees. When you're only connecting with each other in front of a computer, in front of Zoom, it can be a little bit tough. I think a lot of us really want that interaction, that in-person interaction, and so that can be tough. And I think organizations and where I work, we're working through those things and providing some tools and different ways that we can stay connected. But I think that that's still across all of talent, when you think about hybrid and remote, remains a challenge for many of us.
Kritika, what are your thoughts?
I would agree with Kim, and almost not sounding repetitive here, but when you have remote as an option, obviously that increases the geographical outreach, right? Which also gives you an increased, a larger talent pool of diverse candidates, diverse people joining in, which also like it's great for the organization when there is diversity because which means that there are diverse perspectives, which obviously brings in better decision making, which is so critical for every organization. But I think while that is great, the challenges could be also where there could be some really amazing candidates who probably can perform better when they meet in person, because sometimes in a video it's sometimes glitchy. It could be where they probably would not be able to express as much, because there's this whole rectangle that you can see and not beyond that. So a lot of body language, what non-verbal cues are also so crucial, which is just limited when it is through virtual interviews, right? So um, those are the few challenges which I would say could be something that, yeah, people face.
One challenge that comes to mind that is unique to the remote environment, I would think, we've kind of touched on it, but engagement of the candidate throughout the process, considering that there might not be that in person experience. What's worked for you all when uh, hiring in remote first and remote work positions? How do you keep candidates engaged? Kritika, you can go first.
I think this point, Kim did touch on it earlier. I think transparency, being an effective communicator is very crucial. And I think we, from the talent acquisition teams, I think we are quite a bridge between the candidates and the hiring teams, right? So being transparent, keeping them updated, not necessarily waiting for them to reach out, but keeping them up to date on the information is very crucial. I think that's where we could build trust and faith amongst candidates. Yeah, I think that's one of the very crucial point that I could think of.
What
I
about you,
would agree
Kim?
with that. I think the regular touch points, as Kritika said, is absolutely crucial. We've, in some ways, like I think I've shared before, but we've automated some of our processes to make sure that candidates do receive routine touch points from us. But we still also have that human touch as well in having those conversations. I also think it's important to provide a space with psychological safety. You have individuals that are taking interviews from locations where they may have children, they may have loved ones around. They may have pets. I have a dog getting interrupted during an interview. And I think just making that space where you can really get to know that person and try to make them feel safe, try to make it a space where they can be themselves. They're encouraged to show who they really are and to stay then connected with that person. And I think if you create that space and you can create that environment for someone, they'll be more engaged and they'll have a better experience.
All right, excellent. Well, we're coming into our final question here, and this one is for all the marbles. Uh, is the ROI, so the return on investment, on remote recruiting efforts, considering the expanded talent pool and potentially reduced relocation costs, is the ROI generally higher on remote recruitment efforts than traditional in-person recruitment? Kritika, I'll start with you, and if you need to take some time to think about that question, certainly. But effectively, what's a better investment for the company that you've seen? Is it in-person hiring or remote hiring?
Uh, I would say, I mean, it's never a straightforward uh, exact answer, right? But I would say a lot of it is towards hybrid. But uh, I did mention this even earlier. Like remote has its pros and cons, and in person has its pros and cons. And being able to adapt based on the needs and being able to choose, like every detail has its the best way to work things through kind of avenue. So being able to identify FaceTime is important when it comes to be it an employee to the manager or the manager to the client, or even from, for example, talent acquisition versus the hiring leaders. FaceTime to an extent is important, but being able to find the right balance between what is really important at that particular time and being able to be flexible, be it the leaders as well as the TA folks as well as the candidates. So it being able to strike the right right balance is important. I mean, obviously, when you are working on more remote um, opportunities, the pool is larger, and you are able to like save relocation costs to a certain extent. But when you are doing it in person, there is more FaceTiming, there's more face-to-face interaction, which is again very important. So I would probably settle in with a balance between the two, and I think hybrid is something is well, I'll probably go for that.
I would agree
Kim.
with you, Tika. I think it's a tough one. You know, I would personally love to say that the ROI is higher, but I think it really depends on the individual. And we've shared here, as Kritika said, there's a lot of pros and cons. One comes to mind in particular that I think is a huge advantage that Joey you had mentioned is reduced relocation costs or even relocation in general. I think about today's market, and it is continuing to change, but it's been really tough for many individuals to find that next opportunity. And I think not having to relocate to another place to find that next job that you might need immediately, I think is so important for a lot of people, whether it's for your own personal reasons or you have children that are in school, whatever that reason might be, that has to be so difficult to consider that you might have to pick up and move potentially again just to find another job. So I think just from that perspective alone, I look at remote work as having a huge ROI. And of course, then being able to be where you are, where you want to be, and having that flexibility, that work life balance, I think that all builds up to higher performance as well. But again, there are some of those challenges as well. And one that I mentioned earlier, which is just feeling that level of disconnect from colleagues. And I feel that from time to time too. I work from an office all day, every day, and I do miss going out to dinners and happy hours and building those connections. But I think it just depends on the person and what works best for you.
Yeah, I mean, even I mean, when you talk about locally as well, like there are times when even in Toronto, for example, every place is like so far off from each other. Sometimes, traveling, you tend to save a lot of time traveling, but you tend to sit longer hours when you tend to do remote. So it's really like having a balance is something which I would think of. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that your insight and perspective definitely adds value to our community members and their practice that they have in their respective organizations. So I've enjoyed chatting with the both of you. Now, how can people find you online? Kritika, you first, and then Kim second.
I People can follow me on LinkedIn with my first and last name, Kritika Menon. And I think I have created a quite a detailed LinkedIn profile where job seekers, for example, they can browse through my YouTube channel, for example, again to be I with my years of experience, I'm trying to be able to contribute it back and being trying to be helpful to people, whether be it not just on job search, but there could be times on being, for example, simple things like gratitude or whatsoever. So that's, I would say LinkedIn is a good start.
I would, of
And what
course,
about you,
have to
Kim?
say the same. I think LinkedIn is the main place to go to connect. I'm also involved in partnering with a number of different diversity organizations like Tech Ladies, Alpha, Power to Fly, Latinas in Tech. So if anyone else is a member of those organizations, I'd love to connect there too.
All right. All right. Well, truly, it's been a great conversation on the impact of remote work on recruitment strategies. This conversation was its own special blend of knowledge, insight, and expertise because of the two of you. So, thank you both for adding value to this conversation and to our masterclass series. As always, I'm Joy Price, your host. And until next time, have a great week.